And one of the things that we're trying to achieve with One Way and with Rising Phoenix Martial Arts is simplicity. You know, I've trained in a lot of schools that have these different programs. They have like a black belt program, black belt club, master's club. And when you upgrade to the next membership level, you get a special uniform that maybe, you know, has some red slashes on it. You know, it's black uniform with, you know, gold stripes up the side. And when you get all these different uniforms, all these different patches, you know, think about achievement patches because they want, you know, people to have good attendance and, you know, good academics and all this kind of stuff. And different stripes on the belts, you know, like one for your kicking stripe and your punching stripe and all this kind of stuff. To me, it gets sort of cheesy and it gets overbearing. Everything loses its punch and its meaning when there's so much going on there. So Trevor, how have you been?
Pretty good, pretty good. It's a bit of a drizzly kind of highland day, but I don't mind those. I will say very quickly, I found this kind of mask
Ooh,
at
nice.
a
How do you like those? Because I was thinking about those. Are they good?
Yeah. What I'll say about this, really breathable. It's like I remember wearing those other ones. It's really hard to breathe in.
Mm.
This is much more breathable. It's like I don't know. It's the same material that I have in my, like, you know, sports boxer briefs kind of stuff. Like, it's very flexible.
That's a great material to have on your face.
Yeah. No, there's something else. Like compression shirts and shorts and stuff are like made out of it. So it's very breathable. The other thing is if you have a beard, really nice because it's not creating this weird seal. It's just kind of coming up from the bottom. So I found this been really nice. I'll just say that.
Good to know. What are those called?
This one, I don't know. This one is like copper tone, copper fit. I just found it in a gas station.
Gotcha. Yeah, I've been meaning to go online and look at a couple of different options.
It looks a little bit cheesier than the just like, you know, I think everyone's kind of gotten accustomed to the professional look of like, yeah, we're just wearing a face mask. Whereas this looks a little bit more, you know, ninja-y. But
that's cool though. I mean, I
saw someone else wearing one of these as well in the grocery store today. So
when are we gonna get an opportunity to dress up like ninjas again?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But, so that's what I'd say is I found that. I very highly recommend it. I'd be curious if you get less asphyxiated in classes wearing something like that.
Awesome. So I know your camp is just about here. Are you excited, nervous? Got a lot of
yeah. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be a lot more relaxed than normal. It's just the inner circle, and it's more like a artistic residency. So you know, half of the day people are just gonna kind of go out on their own and work on their personal project, whether that's writing a book or a script or painting, something like that. And then the other half of the day, I'm going to be coordinating infrastructure projects. So, for example, we have that campfire that we cook on. We don't have a wood rack where we can store wood and keep it dry. So we're probably going to build that this year. We're going to plant some cedar hedges. We'll be doing stuff like that. So that's half the day. And that's a lot less stressful than, you know, being on as an instructor teaching viewpoints, teaching Meisner technique.
Yeah, for sure.
That's a lot more demanding. This is going to be people who've been there already. You know, it's going to be more relaxed, casual.
How many days is your camp?
1 week with a day on either end for travel.
Okay. Yeah, we already have.
I will not be able to do this next week because I'll still be in it.
Gotcha. Well, we're gonna have Master Joe Zapp on next week, so I'll
fantastic!
But that'll be good.
Say hi for me.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll miss not seeing you. So I had something I was gonna say on that, but I can't remember now. You were talking about your camp.
Mm-hmm. Infrastructure projects, maybe.
Infrastructure projects. Here's what I was gonna say. Here's what I was gonna say. We already have some interest in the camp. You know, people
Yeah.
have already been asking, or the retreat, or the one-way retreat, and people are asking how long it's gonna be, and I was
Oh,
thinking maybe 10 days. That's how long the camp was before. But we'll have to kind of. I'd be
I
interested
know
in your opinion on that.
when I was first thinking about it, I know, the camp before was 10 days for you. When I was first thinking about mine, I was conceiving it as 2 weeks.
Mm.
And then I kind of, after a lot of humming and hawing, trying to pros and cons, I chopped it down to 1 week. But yeah, that's good. One thing I saw in a post, you said like announcing the one-way retreat
Hmm.
this year. And I was like, oh, it's not
Yeah,
this year.
I always do that. I'm so approximate with my dates. It's bad.
Yeah.
Yes, next year, not this year. It would be extremely rushed if it was this year. Um,
But that's something. Oh, and then the other thing, I don't know if we'll get to this, but I'm gonna try and refine some clay from the lake and see if we can make some pottery.
Dude,
Because
nice.
that's
That's
something,
cool.
I want to make everything up here coming from the land. So that's why I want to get a forge and like make some
Yes.
pencils and make some bowls out of the clay from the land, all that kind of stuff.
You know, one thing that we did with the camp in years past was we made foam weapons and we fought each other out in the fields. And of course, we broke a lot of foam
Oh
weapons
yeah,
because there's a bunch of martial artists who are going ham on each other, and the foam weapons are resilient, but they're not used to that kind of
yeah, yeah. It's
abuse.
different when we're like 16 years old versus us as adult martial
Grown
artists.
men. Yeah,
Kind of.
kind of. Well, and also, we've done it for so long that we have good control and realize that we can break these things pretty easily. And you get somebody out there first time trying to prove something, and they snap it on the first chance they get. I've actually seen people break it just in swinging it because they're going so ridiculously hard. But I was thinking, we were always talking about making a forge up there at some point. How cool would it be to eventually forge our own weapons up there
Yeah.
and do some live sword fighting with stage combat swords that you make yourself? That could be really cool.
Yeah, no, I'm very interested because when we build the barn, I think we're going to put a wood shop and a metal shop in it. So
Wow.
that with a forge and stuff. Cool.
Very cool. So anyway, let's get to the topic for today.
Yep.
What I wanted to talk about is the American flag pants, the flaming pants. Rex Kwando. I basically want to talk about how it seems like whenever things become Americanized in martial arts, they always seem to take on this really heavy sort of showmanship, this sort of gaudy excess. And one of the things that we're trying to achieve with One Way and with Rising Phoenix Martial Arts is simplicity. I've trained in a lot of schools that have these different programs. They have like a black belt program, black belt club, master's club. And when you upgrade to the next membership level, you get a special uniform that maybe, has some red slashes on it. It's black uniform with, gold stripes at the side. And when you get all these different uniforms, all these different patches, think about achievement patches because they want, people to have good attendance and, good academics and all this kind of stuff. And different stripes on the belts, like one for your kicking stripe and your punching stripe and all this kind of stuff. To me, it gets sort of cheesy and it gets overbearing. Everything loses its punch and its meaning when there's so much going on there.
And it's sad because I totally understand why you would do that, right? Because we're looking, a long journey, and you're looking for ways to reward people to keep them engaged and excited, and so that's why it becomes very tempting to be like, okay, well, let's find a milestone that we can reward with something visual, so that you can see, oh, something has changed. I am making deliberate progress, but the danger is that does lead to this kind of knick-knacky badges and slashes and stripes everywhere kind of thing.
Yeah, so what are some of the most egregious things that you've seen?
I don't think I've seen nearly as much stuff as you have seen. For me, in some ways, I've seen the other direction, which is like stripping away of the uniform, or like being like, well, it doesn't matter if your uniform has sleeves or not, and then people want to go no sleeves because they think it makes them look, you know, kind of tough guy, look like Ryu or something.
Yeah.
Or just not wearing a uniform because they want to be like, yeah, I just train in jeans and a t-shirt or something. So I've seen in the other direction, mostly my training, but I know what you're talking about with the more kind of flashy, badgy stuff.
That's a really
I
good
wasn't at that tournament with the guy with the flaming pants. Yeah, I feel like that's
that kind of a tournament, which doesn't really have any rules, it just allows like the true nature of like martial arts to kind of manifest, and you get these people who are, you know,
I would argue not the true nature of
it's not the true nature, the kind of the American spirit to sort of manifest in the martial arts fully. You know, I think we're changing. You know, the aesthetics of the 90s is very different than the aesthetics of 2000. I think we've been influenced a lot by Asian culture and their simplicity. But I think we still have a ways to go with martial arts, because we still have a lot of that kind of overly gaudy accessorizing of the uniform. I mean, things that I've seen a lot are weapons patches. So, you know, a lot of schools and weapons programs will have like a bow staff patch, a nunchucks patch, side patch, all these patches going down the arm. Same school I've seen like achievement patches, so like perfect attendance, splits club, full splits club, you know, honor roll, and like all this kind of stuff going down the front. And then they'll have like their Korean flag patch, their American flag patch. They'll have on their belt, they'll have stripes for, you know, like kicking stripe, punching stripe, defenses, forms, all that kind of stuff, attendance stripe. And
it's funny, the thing that I kind of connect to there when you're talking about weapons class and they have all the different things. For me, the thing that bugs me is when it's like 7 different neon colored commas on the floor, and that's one thing that I really liked about our weapons classes. This is just like, it's a hardwood bow.
Yeah, we put a lot of thought into like how can we do things elegantly, and it's not always easy because the industry is not designed for that. Like it's quite hard for me to find the items that I'm looking for because, like you said, the most common nunchucks are like foam nunchucks or graphite, you know, toothpick bow staffs and things like that. But what we're looking for is, okay, what feels right? You know, okay, wooden nunchucks, you know. Well, there's some kids swinging around the wooden nunchucks going to knock themselves out. So we'll do like a foam variety, but we also want to have that kind of traditional feel. And, you know, like going back a step with, you know, checking people off on their curriculum, we made a very deliberate choice to not put that on the belt and to put that on their card. You know, we realized that checking people off on their curriculum is really useful because we were having people get up. I basically stopped doing that. I had been at schools that did that before where they check people off on their curriculum. And I was like, this is just super cheesy, putting these stripes on the belt. I don't like it. But then when I got rid of it, I was like, we kind of need this because everyone is getting up to time to test and they don't know any of their stuff. So let's get them checked off earlier on and give them something to be aspiring to because they might be in that belt for a year or more.
Yeah.
And they need something to kind of, you know, be learning and feeling a sense of accomplishment about. So we put that on the card, which I think is a more elegant way to do that. And with the uniform, you know, we've kept it very simple. You know, like you're saying too, there's this whole, I didn't even think about this, but this is another movement too, is moving away from traditional stuff, like a traditional uniform. Like I can tell my students that they can choose, they want to wear a t-shirt over a uniform. And while, you know, I kind of like that because it means they get to sell a bunch of t-shirts. On the other hand, when I look out and I see a picture of everyone, And I had this big picture when Master Kwan came, and I put it up on the website recently. And I was like, this is great. You know, we have a big picture of everyone in the school and stuff. Not everyone, but we had a lot of students.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of sad because everyone was wearing a t-shirt. Almost every single person was wearing a t-shirt. And I was glad that we only had one type of t-shirt, and everyone still looked fairly uniform. But that picture could look so much better if everyone was wearing a uniform.
Yeah. Well,
And,
you know, and I think it's a very deliberate decision, and it's difficult because obviously everyone wants to personalize their stuff, right? It's like with the weapons, you know, why do they want the green fleckled bow staff? Because it looks different from everyone else's, and it's unique, and everyone wants their personal stuff. So if you said, you know, here are the 12 different colored uniforms that you can wear, people would buy those different uniforms so that they could differentiate themselves, they could feel unique. But the con is then everyone looks all these different colors, and you have a bunch of different styles kind of going on. So it's a conscious choice not to have that. And it's a financial choice too, because there's a lot of revenue in personalized, you know, bag gloves, personalized sparring gear, personalized uniforms, stuff like that.
yeah, I would.
Because, you know, it does affect the.
Yeah, I think that's so true. It's something that we know, like that's marketable, but we're kind of in conflict with what makes money.
Yeah.
So we got to figure out a new way, a way that we can still be somewhat marketable, but we can also stay true to tradition. And I think it's marketable, but it's not marketable long term. I think there's a lot of things that martial arts schools do that is marketable short term, but it's not really looking out for the full vision. For example, we have a big problem with rank integrity in the martial arts, you know, where people just give out belts real easy. We call them paper belt schools or McDojos, like that.
Yeah.
And
belt mills, I've heard.
Yeah. And what that's doing is basically there was a time, you know, back in the 80s and 90s and 70s where getting rank was pretty difficult. And they kind of built up the mystique of the black belt. And then kind of during the mid to late 90s, early 2000s, when the martial arts industry became more of an industry, people realized, oh, we can capitalize on this mystique of the black belt. And so they just started they started reducing the time requirements and the curriculum requirements to earn your black belt. And they cashed in on all that hard work that had been done in the beginning, where, you know, instructors hadn't made much money on their promotions, but they had built up the mystique of the black belt. And that worked for a while. But I think now there's this big turning point in the martial arts, and we're kind of riding that wave, which is that people are looking for more difficulty in their training and for things to have meaning. And so, you know, at our school, our standards are quite high. If you look at the industry standards as a whole, we're on the high side for sure. But I'm proud of that. I think that that's a good thing. It shows that we really don't, for me, making money on the rank, I think there should be some sacrifice, because it's like, for you to really appreciate something, there needs to be some sacrifice in your part. But I never would promote somebody, you know, to make money. I think that's a perversion of the martial arts. So where was I going with that? Basically,
well, there's a direction that I kind of wanted to go, which was a little bit tangential, because I know that you were going to talk about in the martial arts kind of the gaudiness, but I was going to kind of talk a little bit just about kind of more in personal life, which is I feel like in the modern age, it has become very common to try and show who you are in what you wear and what you own. You know, if you are an artistic person, wear this kind of clothing because that will show you're an artistic person. Or if you're a more nature-centric person, you know, you can visualize even right now sitting, listening to this, what that kind of person looks like. You know, they have, the beaded bracelet, you know, they might be wearing more of the kind of browns and green colors in natural fabrics. And we present the kind of person we want to be perceived as in what we wear. And I think that is very seductive, and it certainly makes sense as far as making money, because businesses want to sell you, hey, you're a natural person, natural people wear this kind of stuff, so you need to buy it. I think that's really seductive, but I try and lean away from that because I think it's a shallow way of kind of representing who you are. And to me, it reads as a kind of insecure. Like, I'm not secure that I am a more nature-centric person, or I'm a more mindful person, or I'm an artistic person. So I have to wear these things to show that I am. Just be confident in who you are. And the kind of person that you are will come out in the way that you treat other people. And I say this knowing that I'm not on a high pedestal. I have absolutely done, buy the things so that you look like the kind of person that you want to be. Especially, my young high school years, I was so obsessed with looking unique. I need to differentiate myself. And everyone has their ridiculous phases, and I certainly had mine. But I think I've phased out of that, because I don't want to be tied, my appearance tied to what I wear, or my identity be tied to my appearance, I should say. I think some of that has been influenced by the fact that, I remember I used to have a lot of rings that I liked to wear, but I'm a martial artist. I would have to take those rings off every time I wanted to train. And so I've moved away from a lot of just purely aesthetic choices just for aesthetics.
Yeah.
To be more just myself. And there's a lot of things I think about myself, but I don't think they really come across in what I wear. Like, I don't think I look like a very naturey person right now. Maybe the, hobo beard looks a little bit like a wild man, but other than that, I don't wear, all natural fabrics and things like that. I don't look like a traditional artist. I don't look like Johnny Depp. If you've ever seen Johnny Depp, that's kind of like what an artist looks like. I don't know if you had any thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, as you were going through all that, and you kind of precurses as being not really related to what we're talking about, but actually I feel like it is so inextricably linked to what we are talking about, because what I've seen is sort of, the uniform is a uniform, right? And the reason why people in the military wear a uniform is because that uniformity kind of makes you feel like you're going to do business, and keeps everybody in the same, feeling like they're part of a cohesive team. When I went to school, there was one school I went to had a dress code, and they enforced a dress code, and they would always say the reason why we have a dress code is because when we didn't have a dress code versus when we had dress code, the performance of the kids was very different. Like, when we had dress code, the kids would come to school and be more serious and actually study harder. And it's weird, like, how that actually works, but I believe them. So I think that's one of the reasons why we shouldn't mess around with the uniform too much. Like, when we put on that traditional white uniform, we feel like we're here to do some serious business, and we're part of a unified team. It's the same reason why when you go to work, you put on a dress suit, and you look kind of uniform to kind of help with your productivity. So one thing that I worry about with, one example I wanted to bring up is one example of a westernized martial arts that doesn't have the flaming pants and all those kind of gaudy accessories, although it's kind of getting there, is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Now, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu comes out of Judo, and Judo had just two colored uniforms, a white uniform and a blue uniform. And they basically championed that for a long time, but now you're starting to see things like pink uniforms and black uniforms become popular. interior artwork on the uniform, like when you pull back the flap, is becoming quite popular. Embroidery on the actual rank plate, like where, you know, maybe there's a rhino embroidered on the rank plate, or getting, you know, your initials written on your belts. I think it's kind of silly when I see blue belts with an embroidered belt or something like that, but you are starting to see that kind of stuff. And I think that's just, if it's not curtailed, if there's not a clear, like, goal, like we're trying to achieve this simplicity, it will eventually just kind of diverge in that direction. And I think it will have the same effect on people's training as it would if they were in the military. Like if you were able to go to the military and some people were wearing pink uniforms and black uniforms and green uniforms, and it had nothing to do with your rank, it was just, you can wear whatever you want, and people just started wearing kind of normal clothes, it would really destroy the discipline in the military.
Yeah. No, I think that's something that, like you said, because we've made such a strong choice about it, like we want to have a very stoic look. You know, we come from, you know, I think of the roots are here, this kind of monastic roots of simplicity, stoicism, ascetic, you know, mentality of just simple, clean, traditional. That's something that we will always be feeling pressured to move away financially, to bring new people in, to reward them for progressing. And that's something that will just kind of, will be a constant battle that we'll always have to be vigilant of and kind of feel like we're sticking to our guns. But to talk about what you were saying before, that's the long-term, you know, reward, is that holding on to our integrity of our look and our principles. That's really what people are looking for in the martial arts. You know, they're looking for reconnecting with something that they feel like they've lost. And what I've certainly come across is people feel like they've lost a sense of stability and purpose, and they just feel kind of anxious and flighty, and like they're always being observed by a million different social media platforms and things like that. And something that's really attractive about the martial arts is like, okay, be here and do this thing and just focus on that. And through that, you will gain discipline, you will gain focus, you'll gain a sense of purpose that will carry you through the other parts of your life. So I think that's something that's really rewarding that we can offer, and we're aligning our aesthetics and everything that we do along that same axis. And that's what people are looking for, and what people, I think, find really rewarding once they get here.
So,
and it's hard to articulate that before you can actually see it. You know, it's like, well, I want the martial arts, but it's difficult. But when you can come to a school and see everyone wearing the same uniform, and you can see everyone saying yes, sir, and you can see everyone working their hardest on the mats, you go, wow, this is what I've been looking for. But you wouldn't know that until you see it.
That's such a great observation. I think that's so true. I've been talking to a lot of our students, and when I say things like this about, you know, keeping like clean lines, keeping things simple so that they have the most meaning, I feel like all of our students understand it almost immediately. But it's so weird because I'll go to another school that it has all these patches and stuff like that, and they won't understand what I'm getting at. But yet, when that person would come to my program, after a little while would realize, yes, this feels very different, you know. Like when I had one student that came from another program and was kind of like flashy program like that. And then when they got their green belt under me in my program, that simple green belt, they felt like they started crying. They felt like it was such an achievement. And it's because of that simplicity. And actually, that's one thing I wanted to talk about, and I think this would be a really good note to kind of end on, is talking about the way that we do our rank and how that's really unique. So in Taekwondo, traditional Taekwondo has a white belt, which is 10th group, and then you have a white belt with 2 yellow tips on it, electrical tape tips, and we call this a yellow tip, and this is 9th group. And this sort of system continues all the way up to black belts. And then you have a yellow belt, and then a yellow tip, which is yellow belt with 2 green electrical tapes on either end of the belt, and so on and so forth, okay? Well, in the early days when Taekwondo came to America, a lot of Americans were a little displeased because when they tested after many months and they got a new belt, the master would just put on some electrical tape onto the end, and they'd feel like, oh man, I paid all this money and I worked all this time and I just get some electrical tape. So pretty quickly, Taekwondo masters started going in some different directions. Some of them tried to substitute out the different colors. So in Taekwondo, we have just these colors: white, yellow, green, blue, red, and black. But in karate, they had different colors, some other colors. In judo, they had some other colors. And there were some new belt ideas that were coming out at the time, so that some schools basically have these kind of a color scheme. They'll be like white, yellow, gold, orange, green, camo, tan, blue, navy blue, brown, red, red, black, black. And you get all these different colors. And the downside of that, in my opinion, is there's just too much going on there. No one has any idea what any of the ranks mean. They can't really feel like they've, you know, a yellow belt symbolizes that you're a beginner, but you're an accepted student, that you're not going to go and hurt somebody by sparring. So that's when you usually start sparring. A green belt symbolizes that you are like a cornerstone member of the school. You're somebody who we all know by name. You're a big part of our community. You know, you understand some of those fundamentals. You're starting. They have like these really strong meanings. Mm-hmm. But when you have all these different colors, well, what's the difference between a green belt and a camo belt? What's a tan belt? Like, I don't know what any of this stuff is. And it just sort of waters everything down. Now, another way to do it is like what my master Scott did at his school was he had a white belt and then what he called a high white belt, and he put a black stripe through it. And this is the way that we did it for a long time in my college program and up until about a year and a half ago here at the school. And different schools do different things. You know, at Grandmaster Kwan's school, for example, he has like, you know, like a blue belt and then a blue belt with a white stripe through it and then a blue belt with a black stripe through it, and then it's like a red belt, and it's just something like this, and maybe some multiple stripes and stuff. But my opinion is when you look at the belt and you see a stripe through it, it gets a little noisy. And when you see...
Well, just visually, it's hard to tell. Like, for instance, if it's a white belt with a blue stripe, is that a blue belt or is that a white belt with the modifier of the other color when they're right next to each other at a distance?
Oh, the two-tone belts. Yeah, that's another way that people have done, where it's like half white, half yellow. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, that is, I think, the best example of that. But even I'm saying with the high colors where it's a stripe of one color and you have the color underneath, from a distance, that's hard to tell because you have two colors really close to each other. Is that, you know, this color or this color? It's just, it's more difficult than a solid.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, and another route that people have gone, which is a way that I didn't like, but was also very common, is a two-tone belt. So you have like a white belt and then a half white, half yellow, and then a yellow belt and the yellow belt, and then half yellow, half green, so on and so forth. But the problem there is you don't know, are you a white belt or are you a yellow belt?
Yeah.
I don't know what symbology that means. And so I'm all about clarity. And that's why I like just the black stripe. You know, you have a white belt and then a high white belt, yellow and a high yellow. It's very clean and simple. But I realized, because I have very high standards, that people would be stuck at those ranks for long periods of time. And I needed to start giving out some interim ranks to kind of help them along the way. But when you got a stripe going this way and you have a stripe going this way, it's too much.
Yeah.
Too much going on. Yeah. And so I decided, all right, we're just going to get rid of that stripe. And we're just going to have those little stripes on the side. And you know what's actually really genius about this is we have a ton of little incremental steps that people can feel, you know, but it's very clean and very simple. And there's not a lot to detract from the strong meaning of the rank. And that's what we're trying to achieve with Rise of Fierce Martial Arts with One Way, is that simplicity. One thing that I always think about when I think about the uniform is the white doctor's lab coat. You know, extremely simple. It's just white. That's it. you know, maybe a little pocket here. But because it's so simple, the belt really stands out. You really see that yellow belt on the white. You really see that green belt on the white, you know?
It's actually funny, if I can jump in there. The white coat for doctors has a lot of meaning. And when they receive their white coat, that is called the white coat ceremony. And it has a lot of symbology to it. So it's just kind of funny that you use that as an example.
Yeah. And, you know, the length of
that's a serious event.
Dictates your seniority and stuff.
You know, because it is in a kind of interesting parallel. When you put on that white coat, you are now a doctor and you have to take the Hippocratic Oath, and you are now put in a position where you're going to be responsible for taking care of people and not doing harm, right? So that's just an interesting parallel.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think a few of the things that you just mentioned there are similar goals of ours, you know,
right?
Artists.
Yeah.
Well, I think that kind of covers what I wanted to discuss. You know, just keeping.
I just finished my tea, so that's good time.
You know, we just really want to keep things simple, and that's something that we have to be mindful of as we move forward, because there's a tendency to make things complicated. Mm-hmm. Complicated things may have some benefits, like you were saying, Trevor, you know, where they give some kind of rewards. You know, we could very easily have all these patches and all these stripes and all that kind of stuff, and it would feel good temporarily, but I don't think in the long run it's going to be what is really powerful. You know, I had made this mention to the black belt and how it, you know, kind of spent the early years kind of building up the black belt, and then it spent many years kind of capitalizing on it. I think when you get all these patches and all this kind of stuff and colorful uniforms for different program levels, it's good in the beginning when you're selling those things off. But the problem is, once your school gets established as a place with all these patches and colorful uniforms and all that kind of stuff, outwardly, it develops a reputation in the community as a place that's not really that serious. And it kind of has this sort of cheesified feel to it. And that's a really important, tangible thing, in my opinion.
For me, it kind of comes back to performativity. It's like performing the achievements versus just having that achievement be a very meaningful personal experience.
Yeah. If something's really an important achievement, it doesn't need to be packaged for you to realize that. You'll realize it right away, you know, and almost when it's given out more simplistically, it has more meaning. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, you know, we got Master Joe Zabkov coming on next week. After that, we have Master Justin Green. I was just on his podcast last week, and when he gets that out on his channel, I'll send it over to you guys so you can take a look at that. But we're excited to have him coming on and talking about some of his ideas. Stay tuned for that, and until then, let's keep training hard.